Hello, my name is Dante De Niro, and this is my Lab 7 deliverable. Um, I kind of pivoted away from Jenkins for my CI/CD pipeline, um, largely because I wanted to test out Git Actions. Um, it's because it's something I haven't used before. I've used Jenkins before, um, so that was kind of my decision. Um, but Git Actions is awesome. You don't have to deal with any kind of webhook like you do within Jenkins, and it's super easy to install and set up and get going with your the class VM. All of that is very very streamlined, very nice to use. So like the main thing that is essentially like the webhook or the automated workflow initiation is kind of this little line here. So on push or pull request to the main branch, basically just kind of run all of these jobs. So super nice, super easy, super clean to initiate. So I have a runner running on my VM, which is essentially just like where the job is running. Um, so you kind of just it gives you some installation and steps to install and configure the runner. And so this is running on my VM, and you can see all the jobs that were ran. So that's kind of what this line is. Oh, sorry. This is what this line is here. So instead of running it on GitHub itself, you are running the jobs on a VM instead. So I'll kind of just go over the rest of this kind of workflow file. This is essentially just a Jenkins file that kind of just describes the jobs and then the different steps within that job and like kind of what to accomplish or like what to test. So setting my Python environment here. Um, this is matching the Python version that is within my VM. I'm installing any kind of dependencies that are largely needed for all of my code. Um, Running a black checker against all of my Python files within my GitHub. Um, this will just check to see if the file is formatted correctly, and then again running pilot against those same files. Again, another checker to make sure that things are formatted correctly and nothing's way out of whack. Disabled some options I didn't need, and got all the files here. And then lastly, I'm running my unit test code and then my code coverage code as well. So this is again basically a Jenkins file that you can kind of manipulate and configure with kind of what you want to run, what tasks you want to do. So moving on to my unit test. So this is my unit test file. Defining the different management IP addresses for each of the devices. I have a regex here. That's for the IP formatting, and then username password check for SSH connectivity. So again, this test is basically just making sure that the IP address is formatted correctly, and there's no weird numbers or there's not a letter in there. This is testing the ping of the management IP address from my VM. So if I can ping successfully, then that's one step in order to test to make sure that I can go into that device and configure or pull from the eAPI for Arista. Here I'm testing to make sure that my home or that my passwords file exists. This is important because my Flask app needs this password file to log into the devices to either pull data or to configure certain devices. So if that doesn't exist, I wouldn't be able to do any of that. So that's pretty crucial. And then this test will check to make sure that the Jinja files exist and that they are formatted correctly in a J2 type of format. This test will test to make sure that I can connect to my different devices in Container Lab via SSH. So again, combined with the IP connectivity, if I have IP connectivity and I can SSH, I likely can configure or pull data from that device. So those two tests are important just to make sure I have baseline connectivity. Here, testing OSPF neighborship. So this is kind of a two-in-one. So I'm ensuring I'm gathering the OSPF neighborship information from Arisa's API. So if this fails for whatever reason, I know that it's either A, OSPF is not running, um, or it might be running but doesn't return any results. I have no neighborship, so it's either not running, don't have any neighborship, or my eAPI is not working or configured on the device. So that would kind of check all of that, and then I'm also getting that information, which means success, and then I'm parsing that information so I can be like, okay, neighborship still looks good, nothing has changed there, which could kind of affect any kind of routing, and I might want to go back and check to make sure I didn't add any configurations that messed up any of the routing, for example. So this is doing a similar thing, BGP. So I'm just checking for BGP neighborship relationship, running on R3 and R4. The OSPF one's running on all my routers. So here I'm just checking R3 and R4 as those are the only ones that are running BGP. Again, making sure the API can get that information and then send it back to me. And then I'm parsing that JSON out or response to make it easy for me to read and see, okay, these neighborships are still the same. Perfect. Nothing's changed. We're all good to go. So that's kind of my unit testing. My unit testing was more general as opposed to unit testing each piece of code, because most of my code relies within my Flask application Python file. So all the other smaller pieces of code that I wrote kind of do the same thing, just require basically SSH connection, and then a lot of them are just writing to that password file. That's like 2 of them. So if that file exists, I can SSH and I can ping. That also kind of covers those other Python files. And then a couple of the other ones are outliers. But again, a majority of my Python code is within my Flask application file. So this is basically just testing that file, and then a lot of them will also test, okay, if that works, then it will also test the functionality of this kind of code as well. So that was kind of my thought process there, which kind of translate to my code coverage code. So this is, again, my unit testing code, and then this is my code coverage code. So I'm basically just giving it a list of different functions that I expect to be within my unit test. These 3 are to be added, basically, so I don't have 100%. I just thought of some other things that I could potentially add in the future, but these 3 should be present. So I'm basically just opening that file, my unit test code file, ensuring that it exists, making sure the function exists, and if it does, then I'm like, okay, that part of the code is covered. That functionality is being unit tested. So increment by 10%. So basically just each function's 10%. When I add more functions, I might decrease this percentage just to, make it more even. Obviously you can't get over 100%. So that would be the logical choice. So basically just looking for, that test router configs class, which is here. So just opening this up, looking for this class, and then seeing if those functions exist. So that's basically all that's doing. And then at the end, it will list all the functions that it found, and then the percentage of code that is covered. So we can kind of just test this running. This is just my random file just in order to, enact automated push and pulls. So if I commit this should automatically start a new job. So here, you see that this is now queued. Update to git test, which is that file I just changed. You can see that it's running. So matching Python environment, installing all the dependencies that are needed. A lot of this is already installed, so just making sure that everything is there. Running code black formatter. 2 files are not. So I'm like, okay, which files? Boom. Need to know that I need to reformat those 2. Pylints running on all the different Python files, and then my unit test is running. So this is nice because this is kind of why I included the actual output of the eAPI response, so I can kind of see, okay, these look correct and it's established, so that I know that BGP is for the most part working. This is just a pretty good indicator. You know, if these are missing, only getting one neighbor, say the state is not established, I know that something's wrong and something was probably changed. Here, simple password file exists, so that's good to go. All of the IPs are formatted correctly. All of the J2 files are formatted correctly. And then again with OSPF, you can see, okay, each router I know is supposed to have 4 different neighbors, so this is good to go. And then you can see the different states. Again, if anything's like down, then you can identify, okay, something changed, configuration somewhere changed. Let's go back and see, you know, for further troubleshooting. And then here you can also see like successful pings, so that I know that I can reach those devices. And then SSH was also successful. So that's kind of my unit testing area. And then code coverage, you can see found these certain functions, which is awesome. And then that came out to a total code coverage of 70. So nice even number. And then it kind of does its cleanup. So super nice. Again, Git Actions is awesome. Jenkins is cool too, obviously. It's used a lot. But this was just unbeatable in, setup and installation and download. It took me probably 30 minutes to get this set up. So probably even less. It's honestly awesome. So yeah, that's basically my Lab 7 deliverable, and thank you for watching.